Floating beneath this single mug of coffee is murder, corruption, famine, poverty, governmental depravity, and much more that startles me to my bones. Now that I have your attention, welcome to my informational talk. My name is Sean Allen, and I am a student at Appalachian State University studying as a global social entrepreneurial major. And today I will be shedding light on some commonly unthought of issues faced by coffee farmers around the world. So grab a mug, get comfy, and hear why we must pay attention to our consumer practices. You may be asking yourself, why does this matter and how does it pertain to me? This issue of struggles faced by farmers should raise an eyebrow to anyone who is concerned with all of the major issues of the 21st century globalization, immigration, women's rights, pollution, indigenous rights, and many other issues, according to Dean Saikon in his book, Java Trekker, Dispatches from the World of Fair Trade Coffee. Thus, this is less an issue about coffee and more an issue of equality. The fair treatment of our fellow human being and the well-being of these farmers and their families. So ask yourself, how does this relate to me? And you will find out that consumers of coffee can make a difference solely by being conscious of who we are buying from and how they are sourcing their coffee. So yes, you can change the lives of farmers and their families in coffee-growing regions. It all starts with assessing the shop or roaster you are buying from, what they're selling, and not just the products they have, but what their business values are, their relationships with the farmer, who they're sourcing their coffee, and their knowledge of these issues that will be covered in this video. From there, you can determine whether or not any business is founded on the principles of doing right by our global neighbors. So what exactly are these issues that farmers face? Many of the struggles that farmers face stem from problems with money, which can be interpreted as issues with everything leading up to export and export itself, whether that be financial disagreements, financial delays, coffee diseases, or even just lack of money. Coffee is naturally shade-grown, and there becomes a decrease in the number of crops that can be planted and coffee that can be produced with this method, which means that in order to obtain a higher quality coffee, there is sometimes less yield, resulting in a financial stalemate. Another aspect that puts financial burdens on farmers stems from the unfair payment for a farmer's green coffee, which is unroasted coffee beans. Due to how much money goes to a middleman who takes the farmer's green coffee, or sometimes the entire cherry, takes it to a mill for processing, and then acts as an exporter, and from there we have to ask how much money actually goes to the farmer versus how much goes to the processing mill, the exporter, the importer, etc. Which ties into corruption found in corporations without ethics. So the price of green coffee is set on the C market in New York and London. And with that being said, in certain regions that are still underdeveloped, there are no resources for knowing this market price. Thus, buyers can offer a farmer a price lower than what is set without the farmer knowing whether or not that is a fair price. Furthermore, in certain regions, farmers live from payment to payment, and when payment delays occur, some financial struggles can appear. This is why some farmers choose not to use a fair trade cooperative in order to process and export their green coffee, but rather go straight to an exporter with their processed green coffee, a middleman, if you will. Even though they can get a higher payment from the co-op solely because using a middleman is immediate cash. As one can imagine, this sometimes results in farmers relying on the current payment to last until the next payment comes along. And even then, that is not enough. In addition, living from payment to payment sometimes only scrapes by. It does not account for money that could be used as a means to provide a farmer's child with education. Thus, children do not have the opportunity to escape an often fruitless career of tending to the fruits on their coffee shrubs. In the documentary Black Gold, directed by Nick Francis, there's a scene that highlights a coffee farmer wishing for a better life than the one he has for his son by means of education. The farmer then goes to say that if he had a few more cents per kilogram of green coffee, he would have a better life. Speaking with a friend who has had firsthand experience of financial struggles, Herbert describes to me that on his coffee farm, 575 Cafe in Palacobida, Tolima de Colombia, he was unable to get a loan from the bank in order to subsidize his farm due to something as simple as having his crops too far apart, which is actually better for the coffee shrubs. Furthermore, Herbert traveled approximately 120 kilometers, or about 75 miles, to the next closest bank in hopes that they would provide him with a loan. But that bank told him he had to get the loan from his town. Thus, Herbert was unable to get a subsidy, and for the first 7 years he owned the farm, he did not turn a profit. With that being said, times can be grueling, and in the coffee industry, it seems that the profit goes to everyone else involved other than the farmer. So what is the practicality of this? And why should I be more conscious of my consumer practices? Well, for one, in order to have a greater understanding of how our coffee buying affects farmers and how to be more conscious about the treatment of coffee farmers around the world, which also means in order to benefit farmers and uphold respectful relationships with farmers, we first have to understand what they face on a day-to-day basis. In addition, once you have a newfound knowledge of how to determine whether or not the business you're buying from is supporting the well-being of farmers and founded on respectful values, you can make the decision to continue buying from them or find a business that does accomplish the ethical actions that respect and promotes the farmers they source from rather than taking advantage of said farmers. As I conclude my talk, I want to leave you with this. In order to truly impact the lives of coffee farmers in a positive way, we must be consciously thinking about where we are buying coffee from, and if the roasteries or coffee shops we go to are upholding respectful relationships with the farmers they source their beans from, and how the people we buy coffee from interact with their global neighbor, the coffee farmer. A cup of coffee is more than just a black liquid in a mug. There is much more floating beneath, as mentioned earlier. And in many cases, ignorance is bliss. Not knowing the daily struggles of coffee farmers or the financial hardship that they face day to day, but only seeing the surface of a black liquid is easier, but doesn't spark social and global change in an industry, and in no way helps to combat many of the issues that were mentioned throughout this talk. So I ask you, are you willing to make a change for the betterment of coffee farmers? Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that cup of coffee that was done different, done right.